For so many caregivers, the day doesn't start with a peaceful cup of coffee. It starts with a storm of confusion. In this explainer, we're going to look at exactly why mornings can be so tough for someone with dementia. But more importantly, we're going to walk through a really clear science-backed plan to turn that chaos into calm.
Hearing a question like this again and again, it's just exhausting, and it can be heartbreaking. But it's so much more than a simple question. It's a sign that a person is looking for an anchor in a sea of uncertainty. It's not just about a failing memory. It's a signal that the world around them has become confusing.
And this isn't just a symptom you have to manage. It's a shared daily experience of distress for them and for you. But what if we could see this storm not as something we just have to put up with, but as a problem that actually has a practical solution?
To really get this, let's talk about a real-life example. We'll call her Mrs. K. Mornings used to be her absolute favorite time of day. The smell of coffee, the quiet routine. But as her dementia progressed, that peaceful start just vanished. It was replaced by this daily struggle with disorientation. For Mrs. K, her morning became this predictable cycle of distress. She'd wander around just looking for her slippers, she'd ask if it was Sunday over and over again, and even small things like the kitchen light felt way too bright. The sounds of breakfast just felt jarring. Her brain was basically waking up into a world that was moving way too fast for it to catch up.
So what's really going on here? This isn't defiance. It's not someone trying to be difficult. The science here actually shows us that it's a mismatch. It's an environment that's waking up much faster than the brain can handle, and that creates sensory overload and a really deep sense of uncertainty.
And this brings us to a really powerful tool we can use, applied behavior analysis, or ABA. Now, the main idea is actually pretty simple, but it's profound. It says that behavior is a response to the environment. So if we want to change a distressing behavior, we don't focus on the person, we focus on reshaping their environment to support them.
There's a biological reason for this too. We all experience something called sleep inertia, that groggy, foggy feeling when you first wake up. Well, in a brain affected by dementia, that lag is way longer and much more intense. The parts of the brain responsible for memory and orientation take a lot longer to boot up. A sudden, bright, noisy environment just short-circuits that whole process before it can even start.
Okay, so we get the problem. Now let's talk about the solution. We're going to walk through a super practical 4-step behavioral plan. It's all about engineering a gentle, predictable morning. And this is where you, as the caregiver, can make such a huge difference.
And the plan is really straightforward. First, you just observe and figure out the specific triggers. Second, you make some smart, strategic changes to the physical space. Third, you adjust how you respond. And finally, you reinforce the calm behaviors you want to see more of. Simple, right? Before we dive in, I want you to hold on to this one idea. It's the most important principle of all. We are not trying to correct the person's behavior or fix their memory. We are correcting the conditions around them. We're making it easier for them to feel oriented and calm. It's a complete shift in perspective.
So let's look at one of the most powerful steps. Number 2, reshaping the environment. Instead of flipping on a harsh overhead light, maybe you just gradually open the blinds. You do the exact same thing in the exact same order every single morning. You can use simple visual aids, like a little whiteboard that just says, "Today is Tuesday." You swap out the blaring TV news for some soft instrumental music. Each of these tiny changes removes a bit of confusion and adds a layer of predictability.
Now, the environment is really only half of the equation. The other half, well, that's you. And that brings us to step 3, reshaping your own response. Because how a caregiver reacts to a confused question can either pour fuel on the fire of anxiety or it can gently guide that person back to feeling safe.
Okay, let's break this down, because the behavioral science here is fascinating. The old response, "Mom, I just told you," even though it's understandable, it actually rewards the confused question with intense attention, which can make it happen more often. The new response is brilliant. It redirects them away from asking you and toward the visual cue. You're teaching their brain, hey, the answer is right here in this reliable spot. You're actually reinforcing their independence.
And this leads us right into our final crucial step, reinforcement. Every single time your loved one does something that shows they're feeling calm or oriented, maybe they check the schedule on their own, or they find their slippers, you name it, and you praise it. Because behavior that gets positive acknowledgement is behavior that gets repeated. This isn't about being patronizing, not at all. It's about making that feeling of success and calm feel seen and important.
All right, so this is the question I know is on your mind.
You're putting in all this effort, you're reshaping the environment, you're changing your responses. When do you actually get to see a difference? It's a totally fair and important question.
Well, the data we have suggests that with consistent effort, most families start to see calmer mornings in about 10 to 14 days. Now, the key word there is consistent. It has to be consistent. It's that daily repetition of the same light, the same sounds, the same cues that builds this bridge of comfort for a mind that's just trying to find its footing.
So, let's pull all of this together. What we've really been talking about here is using the physical world as a kind of external memory. It's about creating an environment that holds the answers so the person doesn't have to struggle so hard to find them inside their own head.
This right here, this is the big takeaway. This single idea can completely transform caregiving from this reactive, exhausting struggle into a proactive act of compassion. You are literally designing a world that remembers the day of the week, that remembers the morning routine, that remembers the feeling of safety for your loved one.
Ultimately, this whole approach is about so much more than just managing behavior. It's about foresight. It's about looking ahead to those moments of confusion and gently placing these little guardrails of routine and predictability in their path. It reframes the incredible work of caregiving, not as a burden, but as the beautiful, compassionate science of designing peace.